What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I will be your host for this evening, and joining me, as always, is my co-captain, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy, y'all.
And today we've got an admittedly light show, but still packed with a lot of good stuff. We've got a new series of shorts from Disney's Short Circuit series on Disney+. Plus, we'll finally be talking about Jellystone on HBO Max. And we have to talk about the new animated film from Sony Pictures Animation, Vivo, which is now streaming on Netflix. But first, we also have a lot of Crunchyroll trailers to get through. So, Cameron, what do you got?
Well, Crunchyroll had their big online experience and they basically dumped a ton of trailers onto us. We're not going to talk about the ones that have the least amount of information or animation at all. So don't expect us to talk about like the strongest sage with the weakest crest. But we finally got our first look at High Guardian Spice, the show that a bunch of spoiled children got pissed off at for no reason. And then Crunchyroll doing the exact opposite thing and shelving the show, even though it was done for 2 years. And they still haven't given us a proper release date.
That's frustrating.
It's like, really? Why did this one show offend y'all? I don't get it. There's no logic to it.
I don't understand what made people so upset about this. Although what's funny is watching the trailer, a video came up in recommendations that says the new Crunchyroll disaster that has fans pissed. And on the thumbnail, it says diversity. So, yeah.
I'm afraid to touch stuff like that because so many grifters try to please and appeal to those stupid man children that get mad when anything that includes a woman or someone not white in it. Because, how dare we have more inclusive shows with more characters and variety in stories that are told.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's so frustrating. Just those types of fans need to have their toys taken away from them. Ban them from watching anime and like subscribing to anime. Don't let them buy action figures or manga or whatever. Just kick them out. But in terms of the show itself, again, really, this is the show y'all died on a hill on getting mad at? It looks fine. It reminds me a little bit of like She-Ra, like the Netflix one. So it looks like a fun magical girl action adventure show.
Nothing we haven't seen before, but also nothing it's nothing to really get upset about one way or the other.
We'll see how it is.
I'm sure it'll be good. I'm sure there'll be it'll have a nice message for kids, or it'll just can't be worse than the 7,000 isekai that we get every season.
I would be happy to take a break from isekais, but that's never going to happen. Or at least the ones that are based off of light novels where it's obvious that the isekai is just the premise and it's just for the male lead to be overpowered and then get a bunch of female allies and such for reasons. Because then that makes room for something like The Faraway Paladin. Crunchyroll will be bringing this show over. I'm really intrigued by the premise of this one about a boy who is found by a ghost wizard, a skeleton warrior, and a mummy priestess. And it's like they teach this boy about life and the world around him so he can set off on his journey to live a proper life and die a proper death. It's got a really interesting hook to it, and I will be so mad if this doesn't turn into let's say maybe the better paced version of Jobless Reincarnation, where you aren't waiting 7 episodes of just misery just to get to the good stuff.
Yeah, I gave up on Jobless after 3 episodes. That was a point where I'm like, I'm good.
it's just like, and I'm glad people like it. I'm glad that it does actually get better, but to get to that point is extremely finicky. And I'm sure there are some people out there that do not want to see some of the stuff that happens in this show. There's a reason why it had such a huge pushback when it first came out. And then we get some cool stuff like Love of Kill. These names, man. About two assassins facing off. And it gives me, like, I don't know if you've ever heard of this anime. It was, I think, a big deal back in the 90s called Noir.
I've heard of it.
ADV brought it over back then, and it was really cool. Had a jazzy, soft opening to it, and it was about like female assassins and such. And they don't give you too much in this trailer, but I'm definitely curious to see how it unfolds. I think this one was originally supposed to come out this season, but then got pushed back to fall. Then I think it got pushed back again to winter 2022. So we won't be seeing it until, next year.
Well, just based on what we got, it looks really cool. I love the way that hallway scene is lit. It's got that nice like neon kind of green lighting, and it looks really, really cool.
Yeah. And then we jump back into Skeleton Knight in Another World. I get that this is a popular isekai series. The one thing that it needs to do is to play up the premise that it's based around. A guy gets transported into his MMO because it has to be an MMO. It just can't be a pure fantasy setting. And he's a knight, but he is a skeleton within the armor. So he has to stay in that armor. And unfortunately, seeing that scene where the girl is getting attacked by thieves is kind of like, joy, another one of these kind of things.
Yeah, that was a big red flag.
I was kind of hoping that the orc thing that you see, the pig man monster, like, I hope, and maybe I'll read the light novel or whatever just to see what happens. I want him to be kind of like to play up the difference, like the trope of it all and such. Because really the only thing that's keeping my interest for this show is the whole Skeleton Knight. Like, I want to see how they take advantage of that, because you're going to have more than fan service and copious amounts of violence.
If this was a comedy, I think it might be a little bit more digestible.
We'll just have to see. I'm willing to give it a shot. Even if an anime gives me like a bad impression, like a trailer and what have you, I'm still willing to give it a shot the moment it comes out. And then we have the pour another shot. We got another isekai with In the Land of Leodale, where someone is transported, the hero is transported into their VR MMO RPG. And she finds out that the game takes place, or like her moment of coming back into the game takes place 200 years after.
Huh.
We'll have to see how that unfolds, because a lot of anime, and maybe this is just because of the whole anime industry, there's a very decent elevator pitch here, but it has to go past that elevator pitch. Like, you don't just rely on that, like that one, like the premise.
Yeah, there's got to be something after yes, and it can't just be, oh, this is the premise.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of anime falls short in that regard, and it's a shame because anime takes a lot of time to make, and I think if so many studios weren't pushing or trying to push 100 million shows every season and just focused on the ones that have like the most promise, we wouldn't be having bad adaptations or just maybe lesser stories getting picked up because they needed something to adapt. It's kind of like how it's how the like when anime started coming to the States, you couldn't just rely on what big stuff was coming out. You had to have something else. But now we're at that time and there's just way too much anime. And I know
it's one of the pros and cons of, let's be honest, two streaming services kind of forming a a monopoly around, oh, we have access to everything, so here's everything.
It is, and I guess this is an unpopular take because I don't want people to lose their jobs in the anime industry, but I would be perfectly okay if we had less anime every season. Gives me time to enjoy them more. And not saying that would result in every one of them being good. I'm not looking for that. I want shows to be able to be better than what they are because a lot of those shows are not doing that. And that's mostly because of how the anime industry runs, where it's just constant churning out shows and only a handful of them getting the proper support that they want or need.
It's like how Netflix kind of focuses on quantity over quality. And that's not to say that we'll never get shows of quality, because every season there's at least a handful that are good enough that we will sing the praises for, forever.
Right. I mean, I'm still talking about Horimiya and from the winter season, and I got a few here that I'm willing to check out, but just as a tease for next time, since we're going to be diving into the anime season, there's a lot of shows, not a lot of good ones, and even the good ones are just missing something. And that's a shame because I like some of them. But that's it for the trailers for right now.
For now, so over the weekend, Disney put out 5 new shorts from their Short Circuit series, and this was a good batch.
So this is different from the Pixar Spark shorts, just in case people are not aware. These are the ones made via Disney, not through Pixar and whatnot. It gives a bunch of talent that are like first-time directors to pitch an idea and to see what happens. And there's definitely like the problem with all of these kind of things where not all the shorts are going to be great, but a lot of them are, or some of them do have that idea, but then it's either not taken far enough or, there's literally not enough time for them to flesh it out.
Right.
They're tech demos of like, hey, here's my directing identity. And that's fine. Because as I'm working on an editorial right now, it is healthy for Disney and Pixar and for most animation studios to start finding the next talent.
Having platforms like this or Pixar's Spark Shorts are great just to get, the average Disney Plus subscriber like a chance to watch something different.
Exactly. And I've seen both seasons and I've enjoyed both so far. And even though the second one is shorter, they were definitely able to bring something different visually because they're not all animated the same.
They each have their own unique art style.
Like even like with Crosswalk, I think that is CGI, but it's animated like stop motion, kind of like how the Willoughbys was.
Yep.
And then you have something like Going Home, which has a more French animation approach. And then we have like number 2 to Kettering.
That's another one it's in CGI, but it captures like the very specific details of stop motion so well that if not for like the little intro that came before it, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Right, and it reminds me of a lot of what Leica does. Like it's the exact design philosophy behind them.
I think my favorite though is Dinosaur Barbarian. When I saw it in like the Short Circuit trailer, I thought it looked kind of like a regular old Saturday morning cartoon. Even the designs kind of look like classic Disney designs from like the 70s. It's like that the song that they use could literally be the theme song of like an
80s cartoon.
Yeah, and I really just want to see this like fully developed.
Well, the director talked about that one and saying like, yeah, it's inspired by a lot of Saturday morning cartoons from the 80s and 90s, even though this looks way better than what we were getting back then.
True.
All of these still have their distinct Disney touch with how the characters move and some of the design decisions and whatnot. Like there is definitely a lot of that old school Disney 2D with Dinosaur Barbarian.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had something cool and experimental with like songs to sing in the dark.
I think this might be my second favorite, just because it's a very unique way to visualize sound.
It's probably the most experimental of the bunch, and it's very cool. And I love the different visual designs of the monsters and like the sound that they gave off for each of them. There's this video I watched recently from the Corridor crew. It's their most recent, as of this recording, reaction to animation. And it made me love these shorts and to seeing all the little details that they put into it that you take for granted. Now, I think my favorite is Going Home.
That's a good one too.
It reminds me of just like living here in my city, and even though I haven't left it a whole lot and then to come back to it like a year later or something, I've seen a change. It's somber, surreal, and it hit me differently in that little ending montage at the end. The punchline of it's like all of this was going through his head before he left that house. It was touching. And it's like all these shorts do what they aim out to do. Like Crosswalk is just a cute little comedy. Number 2 to Kettering is charming and wholesome. Dinosaur Barbarian is just goofiness. And Songs to Sing in the Dark is experimental.
They all have something unique to offer. So if you haven't checked any of these out yet, definitely give these a watch.
If you haven't seen season 1, I recommend a few. Like, I think Puddles is pretty good. And I like Just a Thought, The Race. I know a lot of people don't like these compared to the Spark shorts because I think Pixar gets a little more wiggle room in what they tackle. Having both of them is great for talent and for the healthy, to keep the talent pool growing and improving so you can have the next directors and what have you.
I agree with that.
Because you sure as heck don't want to end up like Ghibli and to a lesser extent Illumination Entertainment. Definitely watch these. But we now must move on to HBO Max to take a visit down to Jellystone.
I don't think I was ready for how much I was going to love this series.
So for those who are maybe not aware, just in case, because, streaming services and marketing don't always add up, Jellystone is the newest take on the Hanna-Barbera character catalog through the viewpoint of C.H. Greenblatt, who created Chowder for Cartoon Network and Harvey Beaks for Nickelodeon. And what you get is probably the most unfiltered cartoony show of the year. So it's not worried about storylines or being consistent with continuity. It wants to make you laugh. And I love that.
It has the same sort of DNA as the Looney Tunes show in terms of getting all the characters in like a single setting. And just kind of in general, like a lot of the cartoons from like the late 90s, early 2000s, like I could see, 10-year-old Mike sitting down and enjoying this on like a Wednesday after school.
I was probably one of the few young adult animation fans that was able to still watch Hanna-Barbera before it all got replaced with new original content on Cartoon Network. So I grew up a lot with these characters. I did not grow up with like the Nickelodeon cast or the Disney afternoon variety. I was the Hanna-Barbera Cartoon Network kid.
Same. Cartoon Network was on in the house like pretty much every day.
And that's not to say anything bad against Nickelodeon's Nicktoons or the Disney afternoon shows. That's not my point. It's more just I'm more familiar with these characters than the other shows and what have you. And let's get this out of the way first. This is a great show. And the man-children who are upset about this show, quote-unquote, betraying the original characters, it's hilarious, and they need to go away. Because for one thing, These characters, while they might be pseudo timeless, do not hold up over time. Like, if you watch the original shows, if you weren't careful, they all blend together. This was back then when Hanna-Barbera was like they started out with a few because you had your Yogi Bear, your Snagglepuss, your Huckleberry Hound, your Quick Draw McGraw, Doggy Daddy and Augie Doggy, and like Top Cat. And then when you get to like the 70s and 80s, that's when they went a little chaotic, for like too chaotic for their own good, where they just started throwing things and hoping they stick.
I barely remember any of the more obscure characters from like the 70s.
This show has so much love for this catalog of characters. Like, the people making this show are bigger fans than those grouchy, stupid fans that are complaining about this show. Not that there aren't a few criticisms I have for the show, but they are actually legit criticisms and not the ones that those type like to complain about.
Right.
Because they pull basically almost every character out, whether it's as a background character, a background gag, a dialogue gag. Like, this show will reference Hanna-Barbera shows that you probably never heard of or forgot.
Like, for example, did you know that the Loopy de Loop shorts were actually like theatrical productions? I don't remember ever seeing them on Cartoon Network, but this was like some of the earliest shorts that Hanna-Barbera did after leaving MGM.
I don't think I remember those. I don't think I saw them, but I feel like I've seen Loopity de Loop before. And to the people who are saying that they changed too much of the characters, well, a lot of these characters all had the same personalities.
That's
So
true.
I approve of this show going out of its way to make them more interesting. Like, really, are you going to die on a hill for the original Cindy Bear? Are you really going to die on that hill of one of the worst written female characters in the Hanna-Barbera library? And to be frank, I am perfectly okay with changing half the gender of these characters, because let's be real here, a lot of Hanna-Barbera was a sausage fest.
It's true.
Cindy Bear was probably the one female character for the longest time until they started introducing other female characters, but you don't remember them. I'm fine with them changing half of the men to women for this. And it gives them actual personalities for once. Because some of them did have distinct personalities. Like Snagglepuss, very identifiable. Yogi Bear, Boo Boo, identifiable. Huckleberry Hound, identifiable. Quick Draw McGraw, yes. But the rest,
By the way, one thing I love about Quick Draw in this series is how he's only Mr. Kabong.
no, I love that they just use his superhero persona. And I'm just going to say this. If you're upset about this show changing all of these characters, y'all must have had a heart attack when Harvey Birdman did this a decade ago.
2
Or
decades, actually.
Yeah, 2 decades ago. Peter Eponymous being an otaku in this show, hey, that's fine. It's better than him being a horny sex pest in Harvey Birdman. And of course, he had that catchphrase of, hey, did you get that package I sent you? Never explaining what the package was. But, and then there's one episode where Harvey Birdman actually responds to him. He's like, yes, I got that thing I sent you. And then Peter Eponymous is like overjoyed. He's like, hey, everyone, he got that thing I sent him. So it's like, a lot of these changes don't bother me because a lot of the characters are still who they were back then. Snagglepuss is probably the one who stays like the least changed, but that's because he didn't need much change.
He's just Snagglepuss, and I love Dana Snyder as the character.
Yeah, I love Dana Snyder. He's one of the few voice actors who's like all over this show, along with Jeff Bergman and Greenblatt
And Jim Conroy.
Yeah, Jim Conroy, who plays Huckleberry Hound. And Huckleberry Hound is great as the mayor. He's probably the most sensible one as the mayor, so I'm not like that wasn't a shock to me. And I love his like how for the most part until the last episode of this batch, he's basically chill, like nothing bothers him until the very end. Like, and I like the animation style with this show. It's got this cool, charming, like thin line pencil sketch look to the characters. And it's not all that different than how they were animated back then. Unless you want to go through like how many different Ranger Smiths showed up in Yogi Bear.
Yeah, there for some reason Ranger Smith's character design went through a couple different changes because reasons.
And to the people who say, well, they don't have any of the teen shows on here, it's like, oh, you mean all those Scooby-Doo ripoffs that they made? They show up. They pop in as little quick gags. Like when you see Woofer and Whimper. I forgot what the... See, this is a problem. They weren't distinct enough because they were just basically Scooby-Doo, but with two dogs.
Yeah.
But it was funny to hear him go like make the obvious gag of like it was Old Man Jenkins. I know that's like the obvious joke to make with these Scooby-Doo type shows, but there's a reason why it's always Old Man Jenkins.
Oh, and I think one of my favorite Jabberjaw gags was when like Jabberjaw, Yogi, Caveman, and I think it was Boo Boo who were playing badminton.
Yeah.
Like Jabberjaw's like, I gotta do this for my friends, for my family, and like the people who pop up are like, you know, like all the characters from Jabberjaw.
Right. And some of these characters were just like one note ideas. Like Jabberjaw was just one of the Three Stooges, and that was it. Nothing, not much else. And I liked her voice actor, Nicole Thurman, who also plays Squiddly Diddly, another character who just I don't remember anything about.
Same.
From the original incarnation. And then we get like I think my favorite of the newer type like takes on the characters was Magilla Gorilla, who's voiced by the great Paul F. Tompkins.
Oh, I thought that was him.
He is so good. I love the little dream sequence Jabberjaw is having where he's just like, why must I suffer for my art? Why can't I dress a moderately good, decent person? Curse these, like these delicate monkey hands. Like Paul F. Tompkins is great. I love him. He's like one of my favorite, like under the radar comedy actors.
I think one of my favorites was Shag Rug, who was voiced by one of my favorites, Ron Funches.
Oh, he's great. You could easily, even though they changed his voice up a little,
they increased the pitch, but it's still very much him.
Oh, it's basically a higher pitched King Shark from Harley Quinn.
Speaking of Harley Quinn, did you notice that the genie Shazam was pretty much doing like a version of Bane from Harley Quinn? It's not the same actor, but the delivery was like uncanny.
Yeah, well, that's how a lot, like, even if they changed some of these characters a little, they still have, for the most part, the same speaking mannerisms. And Shazam was, like, talked like that back then. And, like, that was his kind of voice. He was this big, booming genie character. One of my other favorites is Choo Choo, who's played by Jenny Lorenzo. How she can just hack anything, apparently. Like even if it's not connected to the computer, she's the pink cat among the top.
Yeah.
And I also liked Olka Simone Mohanty as Loopy De Loop, and I love that the one line that like one of the few adult jokes that I caught was when she was just like, "I don't move my body, I only move it for pleasure," and it's like, whoa. Yeah. I mean, this is Greenblatt. He like if you remember watching Chowder, they slipped in so many adult jokes into that show. And I just love that this show just wants to be cartoony because it's basically how the old cartoons were. They had zany incidences. Like I still think my favorite one is the first short where Yogi gets a new stomach where it makes him bottomless.
I'm sorry, it's not personal.
Yeah, it's hey guys, it's nothing personal, but I'm gonna have to eat y'all. And I love that Top Cat tries to like scam everyone. He's saying like this may look like a can of normal spray paint, but it's actually full of a chemical called back-offertin. Now I got a whole case of this stuff, and I'm willing to sell it for 500. And then he gets eaten, and then Yogi says that line, and then Captain Caveman's just like he's immune to back-offertin. Run! It's just funny. This show is just delightful, and it's just nice that I know some people are like, well, why do we have these straightforward cartoony shows when we can have more story driven stuff? And it's like, hey, you know what makes the animation landscape healthy? Variety.
Also, there's no reason the show can't be cartoony and have a story. Like eventually we will talk about big city greens, but from what I've heard, there is sort of an ongoing narrative, but most of why people love that show is because it's just freaking hilarious.
I've seen a little bit of it. It's really funny. So I can't wait to talk about that show at one point. But I think I love this voice cast. I'm going to go through them quickly. We have like Jeff Bergman, Dana Snyder, Jim Conroy, Carl H. Greenblatt, Grace Helbig, Bernardo De Paula, Georgie Kidder, Thomas Lennon, who plays
Top Cat.
Top Cat, yeah. Nicole Thurman, Katie Grober, who plays Yaki Doodle, and Bernardo De Paula does a great Mildew Wolf. Kind of has that like, I'm just saying. And I love that joke during the wrestling episode where he's just like, I don't know, man. It's been a tough couple of decades.
Oh, and Flula Borg shows up for a quick cameo as the Great Gazoo.
And of course, if y'all listen to our last episode, he's also comfortable Doug from in Centaur World, among other roles, of course, but still. And then like we have Fahir Al-Kaisi, who does Shazam and Haji. And then we have like Leslie Nicole, who does Winsome Witch. Now, see, who remembers Winsome Witch?
I sure don't.
I don't. I'm a little disappointed that we haven't seen a lot of Grape Ape. And apparently Johnny Quest and Haji, like, they do have their voice actors, but they don't do a lot with them, which I'll talk about that in a moment. And then we have like Angelique Perrine, who does Ma Rug. Then we also have the Banana Splits, who are voiced by like Paul F. Tompkins, Carl H. Greenblatt, Jim Conroy. Let's see, we have Melissa Villasenor, I think Scott White, and I think that's everyone. Fun fact, if you play Overwatch, which, with all the stuff at Activision right now, you shouldn't. The anime version of Huckleberry Hound is voiced by Gaku Space, who voices Genji from Overwatch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I love this voice cast. I think they do a pretty good job at bringing these characters to life.
They bring that modern comedic sensibility to, characters that have been around for, 70, maybe
plus years.
Yeah, 70 plus years.
And I know some people may be like, well, wait a minute, but the cartoons were timeless. Well, you know what? They were back then. That was modern humor for back then. So nothing, I guess to me, like, so little has actually changed of this show. So I don't really agree with how much has changed, like, with everything and such, The
most that has changed is like a couple characters are different genders, but even then, if personalities are changed, they're honestly changed for the better.
And like, I just love the commitment to just like everyone seemed to be on the same page with their performances, and I love that. Like, I love like when Grape Ape goes down in a food coma and the ambulance is riding there, and you hear Yogi Bear going like wee woo wee woo wee woo, doing the sound of the siren, and Cindy Bear just trying to be the CSI Miami guy with all the puns.
And Huckleberry Hound says, Cindy, this is serious. I'm sorry to yell at you.
Like, I guess to me, my one little criticism is that some of the jokes didn't land. I'm a little bummed that the last joke of the last episode of this batch was a fart joke.
That's kind of unfortunate.
I mean, just because I found everything else really funny. Like I love like again with Grape Ape going down. I love that Touche Turtle and his crew are like, okay, start naming ideas or no more. There are no bad ideas, and that's all they do throughout that episode. And I love that like Huckleberry Hound is just like, here I'm giving this medal to Touche Turtle for keeping this town safe for a whole 2 weeks with no accidents. And then Touche Turtle's like, it's a new record. Now, I'm going to get this out of the way first. I want to see more of this show, but I want to see a little more focus on the other characters.
Oh yeah, for those who don't know, this is getting a second season.
Oh, that's great. I love it. Good on you, Greenblatt. And I want it like because this is kind of the thing that I had with the recent Looney Tunes short. Like, this was great to see a bunch of them with Yogi Bear, and Yogi is just great. He's probably my favorite character of the show so far.
I think my favorite might be Top Cat because I'll admit I don't remember too much about the original show, but here they really stretch his his love for scamming.
Oh yeah, no, that was what the original show was like. It was him and his gang trying to, scam people. That was a great episode where where it's just like, no, these aren't expired fish sticks, they're vintage. And it's like, okay, so what are we going to sell them for? $5-6 a stick? No. Like I said, vintage. They're going to be $11 a pop.
The punchline that instead of like making the townsfolk sick, they turn into giant fish zombies.
Yeah, that was great. I love that. There are so many little jokes, and I just don't want this whole section to be about talking about the jokes because I want people to watch this show. And it's going to be airing on Cartoon Network. So that'll be fun for people to be able to see them on TV. But I loved the joke where he's like, oh, look, good news is this tomato bisque is only $8. Well, don't forget to put the instant shipping cost down and it's $8,000. That's how those places get you. Like I remember wanting to try out this one online shopping thing to get like a bunch of like snacks from overseas. And then it was just like, oh, so this is $10, so I'm sure it's going to be like $5 or whatever. And then it's like, here's 40 additional shipping and handling. And it's just like, bye, I don't need these.
That's how they get you, man.
Yeah. But in general, I adored Jellystone, and I can't wait to watch more of it. We'll definitely talk about it if they do more changes. But this is easily one of my favorite shows of the year so far in terms of just pure cartoon.
I think this is probably the biggest surprise that I've seen because I had a feeling it's going to be good because C.H. Greenblatt does, he has a great sense of comedic timing. I wasn't prepared for how much I'd be laughing at, like, even some of the stupider gags in this. One of them is Jabberjaw's dream after she gets like the idea of the assistant manager promotion and how it kind of balloons into her becoming like a super celebrity.
Just because she became an assistant manager.
And then my favorite episode was for kind of a similar reason, the Mr. Flabby Dabby Wabby Jabby.
Oh, that one's great. I mean, like, I don't really have an episode I disliked because I think they each had some zany, cartoony nature to them. I think A Coconut to Remember is my favorite episode just because of Paul F. Tompkins getting just to be the best with Magilla Gorilla. And he's like trying to talk down to Jabberjaw about why she's not getting the assistant manager promotion. And she's like, we all have to live with disappointments in our life. You see, like me, I wanted egg white, but then that's just off-white. And he looks up there and he's like really peeved, even though the white is just nonsensical in that way of just like, it just looks white. But of course, if you know paint and such,
there's
a difference.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, what about those shoes that are being marketed outside? Always sitting there on the side in the window for people who are never going to buy them. Really Paul F. Tompkins and Dana Snyder are my favorite voice actors for this show.
They really carry a lot of the humor, and Jim Conroy.
Yeah, and well, really, I like the whole cast. I don't really have a favorite. And then like Jeff Bergman, just just watch this show. Just go watch it, have a fun time. Don't expect some dramatic epic story. I'm sure you'll find some of the characters to be great. I think the one thing that I like is that Doggy Daddy and Augie Doggy don't change much, but they reinforce his obsessiveness to a comedic degree in like the first episode. And like to the point where like Yogi, like everyone's trying to get away from Yogi from eating them. Yet Yogi's doesn't want to eat Augie Doggy because she's singing this obnoxious song. And Doggy Daddy is just offended by that fact. It's like, how dare you? It's like, okay, I'll just eat the legs and then nothing else. Just get her out of here. How dare you? She's delicious from top to bottom. Just like, I like this show, man. I don't know what else to say.
Just watch it. If you're having a bad day, this will easily cheer you up.
I've been very impressed with what HBO Max has been doing and Cartoon Network. Like, we'll have to see how some of their new stuff coming out with that Cartoonito stuff, or if we'll ever talk about it.
And we still have more of Tick and Seek to eventually watch.
Yeah, and I've been happy with like stuff like the Fungies and what have you, and just how they've been handling their writing and comedy and animation. And well, if you're getting kind of tired of that Cartoon Network visual look, Jellystone is visually distinct from the rest.
And now we move on to another great Netflix film that they did not bother to market except for a couple clips and one trailer, Vivo.
Yes, the next film in a packed year for Sony Pictures Animation. Holy macaroni. Let's see, they have The Mitchells versus the Machines, Wish Dragon, Vivo, and they still have yet to get to Hotel Transylvania Transformania. That's quite a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that is but I mean, we'll talk about it, that Netflix's marketing sucks. But Mike, what did you think about Vivo?
Well, first, for those who don't know, this movie was directed by Kirk D'Amico, co-directed by Brandon Jeffers, and was written by Peter Barsacchini and Chiara Allegra Hudes. And this was a project that star and producer Manuel-Miranda has been developing way back in 2010, right when In the Heights was at the height of its popularity on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
So this project predates Hamilton by like half a decade. I love this movie. I can't really mince words about it. And I'll admit that part of the reason why I fell for this as hard as I did was because I just had a death in the family, that there's a subplot in this that hit a little bit too close to home. Watching this was a bit of an emotional experience.
I understand. And granted, Netflix did kind of spoil a major point of this movie in the trailer. The one trailer that it got. I mean, to be clear, it got a teaser trailer, but it didn't get a trailer until like a week before it was released. Anyway, I really enjoyed this movie. I still think The Mitchells versus the Machines is my favorite of the Sony Pictures animated films of the year. But I was very happy to finally get to see this. I was really hyped for it during the Annecy preview that we saw. I loved all the concept art that they showed off during that preview. And then finally being able to sit down and watch it. It's a really charming movie. It has a lot of heart and soul in it. Great music. I have some complaints.
We'll get to some of those.
Yeah, but let's do a quick little plot summary. So Lin-Manuel-Miranda plays Vivo, this little kinkajou, or a honey bear, who lives in Cuba with his owner Andres, voiced by Juan de Marcos Gonzalez, who, if you're a Buena Vista Social Club fan, he's one of the founding members of it. And they go into the town every day and play music for everyone there. And then one day in the evening, Andres gets a letter from someone he used to love saying like she became a famous musician, and her character's name is Marta, voiced by Gloria Estefan.
which is phenomenal casting, by the way.
Oh, she's great. She wants him to come to Miami for her final performance so they can reunite and see each other again, because they were both separated from, like, after she got a big gig to play in the States and whatnot. And Andres didn't want her to stay there in Cuba. He let her go. And at first, Vivo's like, man, why do we have to go? Because he's hesitant of change, because his whole life has been playing music with Andres. And then at the very end, he realizes, like, okay, we got to do this. Fine, Andres, let's do this. And this isn't a spoiler because Sony and Netflix showed this off in the trailer. Andres passes away. And at the funeral, Vivo meets Rosa and Gabby, the niece-in-law to Andres, and the grandniece, who are voiced by Zoe Saldana, and Gabby is voiced by Neorali Simo in her, I think, first performance, like big film role. So
it has to be her first, and she definitely leaves a strong first impression.
She goes at the beat of her own drum. Essentially, like, as Vivo is mourning the loss of Andres, he realizes that he needs to take the song that Andres made to Marta all the way in Miami, and essentially sneaks on, like, into some luggage that Gabby and Rosa own, and flies back to Florida, and then tries to find his way to Miami with the help of Gabby as they go on a journey to reconnect with Marta and to give her Andre's last song. Where do you want to start with this? Do you want to start with the animation, or do you want to start with, like, the overall story and how it was told?
We'll get to the story in a minute, but I want to talk about two things. One, this movie does a great job of incorporating 2D animation with the 3D animation, and they do it a lot during the musical segments, which I think it adds a little, like, something special to the overall presentation.
Something that's, like, a little different from the animation here, it's not as snappy and cartoony as something as Hotel Transylvania, and it doesn't go as far as the Mitchells versus the Machines and Into the Spider-Verse. The animation's a little more weighted and grounded. Not to say it's like, and I'm not saying it's bad. It's great animation. It's just animation that is needed for a musical, like for a film like this. It's not meant to be this otherworldly experience like Spider-Verse, or this unreliable narrated experience as the Mitchells versus the Machines.
If anyone's going to start making comparisons to Disney or Pixar, I will point out that Rich Moore is one of the producers. He's directed things like Zootopia, and he's worked on the Wreck-It Ralph series. So his stature in animation, his name brings a lot of credibility to this project.
And we also have James Baxter, who handled the 2D sequences, and he was a huge Disney animation veteran. And James Baxter is, like, one of the big animation heads in the world. So it makes sense that they would need someone who has wild number of, like, years of experience with 2D animation, because he did, like, the animation for Rafiki and The Lion King and Quasimodo and Hunchback and Belle and Beauty and the Beast. And these 2D sequences are great. This is where the creativity of the Sony animation trademark steps in. It's vibrant, neon, bright, and it just looks good. It helped. The 2D sequences are great. And then they add 2D elements to the CGI, which helps enhance the CGI.
Mm-hmm.
The characters are still very much designed like Sony Pictures characters. We're getting to that point now where Sony Pictures has a very distinct human look.
They're really sort of developing a house style.
But hey, which that's fine with me. And they can keep experimenting with visuals as they go, because that's apparently their goal. And I liked the music. I know everyone's a little, like, Manuel-Miranda out, because it's like he's everywhere. He's the biggest hit right now because, of course, with In the Heights, Hamilton, and then his hand in stuff like Moana, and, of course, the movie adaptation of In the Heights, and then, of course, he's going to be in Encanto, music-wise.
Yep.
And then, of course, he was in like DuckTales. He was in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He was everywhere. He's everywhere, and I understand it's like it's overexposure, and if that makes sense.
I understand that.
And I'm pretty much fine with that. It's like I understand some of the other issues that people have with him. I guess let's talk about it since we've talked about the animation. What did you think about the voice cast overall? Let's start with Lin-Manuel-Miranda. This is his first major leading role in a movie.
I think voice acting is, aside from, writing music, which I think is his like his claim to fame, as far as like acting goes, I think voice acting is like probably the best use for his talents.
I think he's getting there. He's slowly winning me over. And that's only because I haven't seen him in a whole lot of acting. So I think he's still finding his groove. Like, I think he did a good job with Fenton Crackshell in DuckTales. Like, having that, like, manic nervousness to the character. And I think he brings, like, an innocence and a charm to Vivo. And I think he does a good job. I can understand if some people, like, I've seen some comments say he's a little much at points.
They're not wrong.
I think, in general, he does a fine job as the main character. I can't really think of someone else, but I'm not shocked that he's the main character. It's his idea. It's his passion project.
Obviously.
You're going to take the lead role. And I know that sounds smug and arrogant, but when you do that as well, or make yourself one of the main characters. And I like the voice cast. I think Juan de Marcos Gonzalez does great as Andre. He brings so much lovability to Andre.
It's a very like seasoned, like very warm, like a warm presence to a character like this.
And this is like his first voiceover role, and I would love to hear him in other films or shows.
Same.
Like, Andres is probably my favorite character. I just love him. And it's a shame that he's not in the movie a whole lot. We'll get to the criticisms. And I think Marta, even though she's not in the whole movie a whole lot, I think Gloria Estefan brings a loving charm to her. Zoe Saldana as the mom, as Rosa, she's fine, but I think it's mostly her character. There's not a whole lot to work with.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately, because Zoe Saldana can be great, and I love her, but her character doesn't have a whole lot. Like, I think some of the side characters are a little forgettable, while some of them are like have a little more to them. There's this Florida bus driver who's voiced by Leslie David Baker, who leaves much more of an impression.
It's more of an impression that he needed to have.
Yeah. It's like he didn't need to go that far, but he puts in the performance that's delightful and funny. And then we get some surprises. Like, I either didn't know they were in the movie or I forgot. But I want to talk about Brian Tyree Henry and Nicole Byer as Dan Carino and Valentina, the spoonbills that you meet like a little bit halfway into the movie.
I didn't realize at first that was Brian Tyree Henry. Like, I knew just from like constantly looking at the Wikipedia page that, okay, yeah, he's in the movie, but his performance, it kind of reminded me more of like Keegan-Michael Key, like in the way that he talks, the sort of manic energy.
And then Nicole Byer, I think some of the female characters kind of suffer from being one note, or they just give her like one little quirk. Like, she's a little quirky and awkward, that matches Dan Carino's character and such.
I understand exactly what they were going for with that dynamic.
We'll keep criticisms until the end. I'm sorry. And then we got Michael Rooker as Ludador, this big, gnarly python that's in the Everglades. Not a very deep villain, but he didn't need to be. Is there a term for these kind of villains where they're like roadblock villains or like rest stop villains?
If such a term doesn't already exist, I think we just coined it.
Because Ludador doesn't play into the overarching story. He's there as a roadblock when Vivo and Gabby lose the lyrics. And Vivo's frustrated, and then all the animals are like, be quiet. You gotta be quiet. Ludador doesn't like noise. While it's not like the most amazing role that Michael Rooker has done, it definitely fits. Like, he brings a very sinister charm to Ludador. And Ludador has great animation on him also. I love his design.
Oh, yeah.
And I love Michael Rooker just in general, so seeing him is just great.
When it comes to playing like the kind of sort of villain roles, Michael Rooker always understands the assignment.
Agreed. And then we also have like Katie Lowe's as Becky. Every chaotic white girl is named Becky. um, you got Ava, who's voiced by Olivia Trujillo, and then Sarah, who's voiced by Lydia Duet. And they play these Sandpiper, these Girl Scout characters. And again, there's not a whole lot to them, but I do love their marketing of just guilt tripping the heck out of that one guy, Mr. Henshaw.
I just want cookies.
Yeah, it's like, "Oh, that's a plastic bag. Don't you know that plastic bags have a high chance of killing something in the environment? Wouldn't you want one of our disposable, environmentally friendly bags instead and not be a monster? I just wanted cookies." And then, like, a few minutes later, it's like, like, Mr. Henshaw, you live 2 blocks from here. You drove? This movie's humor is delightful, and I think they actually threw in some swearing, like at the beginning when that Montoya, the character who gives Gabby the instruments and such, and like the letter to Andres.
Oh,
There's
yep.
that sequence where he almost gets hit by a car, and they're swearing in Spanish. I do think they are cursing, but of course you probably wouldn't catch that.
A clever way to get past like the censors is to swear in another language.
Yeah, and I will say that even when some of these characters don't have a lot of time on screen, they still leave an impression. And I think that's because this film has a ton of personality and just charm, from Cuba to everything you see in Florida. But I guess let's get to Gabby, who's voiced by Nearali Simo. What did you think of her? I thought, like, performance-wise, I think Simo does a great job of portraying what kind of character Gabby is. And even though it's like the point of her character, I've seen people kind of respond with she's a little too much energy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like sometimes when it comes to like criticizing characters, especially children in film and television, it's hard to like to tell what is like an actual criticism and what is essentially just describing the character. In this case, the fact that she is kind of loud and chaotic and would totally be best friends with Katie from the Mitchells versus the Machines.
I think she was a little much at points. Like, it was just too much like energy.
Her song, My Own Drum.
It's a very like in your face song. And I understand that's why it was like some people were like, man, this was just a little draining. And though to me, it was like, it's funny. I was listening to the song when I was watching the movie, and I was like, this sounds like a Missy Elliott song.
And then it shows up in the credits with Missy Elliott.
Yeah, with Missy Elliott. And I was like, I still got it. Recognizing certain musicians and singers like style. Like, what did you think about the songs? Because that's also the big selling point. Because Manuel-Miranda teamed up with his co-writer of In the Heights to write a new batch of songs. And what did you think?
I thought the songs were great. Obviously, the ones that that featured Juan DeMarcos Gonzalez and Gloria Estefan were the tearjerkers. Pretty much any time that they were on screen, I just turned into a puddle. But on the whole, I like the music. I like that there's a little bit of a variety. There's, songs that are a little more traditional to the setting. And then something like My Own Drum is definitely more modern.
Yeah, I thought the songs were pretty good. I agree. I think the ones with Andres and Marta were the best. But I will say I've been listening to One of a Kind multiple times. That's a song that has Vivo and Andres singing together.
Oh, yeah.
And it's great. I like this kind of music.
The song that I've had like stuck in my head forever is Keep the Beat.
Keep the Beat is a good song too. I don't hate any of these songs. Or at least I can't think of one off the top of my head where I was like, okay, they didn't need to add that. It's not like what's the song in The Hunchback of Notre Dame?
A Guy Like You.
Yeah, A Guy Like You, where it's like, oh my gosh, to take this song out, or of course the Rock Troll song in Frozen, the first
Oh,
one.
Fixer Upper.
Yeah, Fixer Upper. It's like, oh my gosh, like I think the songs are good at progressing the story. They feel like they're there. They're not just like the movie stops, song, the movie keeps going. The movie keeps going because the songs help propel it. Now, I understand if some people have an issue with Miranda's singing voice, but I will make a defense that I think he's singing well here. The songs are tuned to his vocal range.
I've never been the biggest fan of like Miranda's singing. I will say it's not really as bad as some people make him out to be. And I'll even give a little bit of benefit of the doubt to a lot of criticisms came from the Disney Plus recording of Hamilton, where compared to his rapping, his singing voice is like a couple levels below everyone else. It's serviceable.
I think there's a difference between actually bad singing and then singing that and songs that are tailored for your vocal range. Like there's that Les Miserables film that happened a few years ago. Or
Oh, yep.
I guess a decade ago now.
Close to a decade.
And a lot of people were like, "Oh, what's his name? Not
Russell Crowe.
Yeah, Russell Crowe." And it's like, technically, he's not singing terribly. It's like the song is tailored for his voice, so like he's singing within his range. If he went out of it, then that's a problem. And here, I give kudos to Miranda. Like a lot of the songs in Vivo have very fast-paced rap, and for him to keep the rhythm, that's impressive. Especially One of a Kind. Like that's a little too fast for me. Like not as a criticism. It's just like I can't go at that pace.
Right. Few people can.
And so that's just my opinion on how his singing is in this film. And I think Simo does a great job with Beat of Your Own Drum. And Brian Tyree Henry and Nicole Byer. Well, Brian Tyree Henry sings well. Apparently, they got someone else to do Nicole Byer's singing voice.
Anissa Folds.
Yeah, so kudos to Brian Tyree Henry. Like if the only thing you've seen him in is Atlanta, change that because he's a much more diverse actor and he has a better range than I think a lot of people give him credit for.
I agree. I've been seeing him pop up in like a lot lately. He was a voice in Into the Spider-Verse. He showed up in Joker, of all things.
Right.
He's like part of the ensemble of Marvel's Eternals. The dude's got a lot of range.
Like he's one of my favorite actors to spot. And let's talk about some criticisms because I have a few and they're just kind of in general criticism.
I'll start with kind of like the general criticism of this is more or less like a typical buddy adventure film, like because the literal plot of the movie is we got to get from point A to point B. So of course, it comes part and parcel with all the usual cliches. There is one point where the characters get separated, and thankfully it's not like
I hate you, and
yeah, it's just like no, they literally got separated.
Yeah, and I like how they play that part up, and then when something tragic happens in the third act or the beginning of the third act, it's never like it never leads to another breakup. It doesn't last that long, surprisingly. I was happy about. But yeah, my major criticism of this film, and it's basically the one that everyone else has echoed, the story does play it a bit safe. And now it's a great story about how music connects us and just like what we leave with our legacy and of course the strength of family and what have you. But it's like, don't go into this movie expecting a lot of thrills if that's what you're hoping to get. Like, you're just wanting something on the level of Mitchell's and Spider-Verse.
Yeah, it's not quite at that level. And again, I'm trying not to compare this to, a Disney musical, but stylistically, this is kind of closer to that or early DreamWorks.
Right. When they actually try to make musicals. I found a lot of the side characters forgettable. I guess it's like, to me, I wish they had more time to spend with Vivo and Andres, because that was like my favorite part of the movie, was seeing them bond and such. I wanted the film to be just a little longer, or to be paced out to where we had a little more with Andres. And granted, part of me was like, I wish they kind of kept him alive so he could meet Marta.
That would have been nice.
But of course, they would have had to rewrite the whole movie.
I think that's kind of the problem with even criticizing this, because you change one element and that it kind of changes like everything.
Yeah, I know a lot of YouTubers love to say like, well, here's how I would fix it. And they never take into consideration that one change means that everything else has to change. Because otherwise you get something like, whatever, I forgot what it was called.
Oh, Little Nemo in Dreamland.
Yeah, where it's like some of these things don't match, or like The Good Dinosaur from Pixar, where it's like something doesn't feel cohesive because they were just constantly making changes. With something like Vivo, you take out one thing, you have to redo everything.
One thing they could have changed, and even this I don't have full confidence in, that like you could have had Gabby and Rosa living in Cuba, but then because of Andre's death, they pack up and leave for Florida. But even that kind of changes things to a certain extent.
I just think this film has kind of a hit and miss character lineup. Like, I like some of the characters, but I also just kind of forget about others because they don't leave too much of an impression. Even if they have like great actors and such, it's just,
for example, the Sand Dollar Girl Scouts. The scene like when you first meet them, the one customer who like, that's like some of the funniest scenes that they're involved in. But then I kind of feel like the rest of their screen time, they're just kind of overstaying their welcome.
Yeah, they should have been like roadblock antagonists. We get the overall point that Gabby doesn't want to be like the rest. She wants to go at her own pace, at her own beat. And that's it. There's just no interesting take on it here. And I'm not saying that you have to be original every single time. That would burn people out if you had to keep reinventing the wheel. It's more of just an execution thing.
Right.
Like, I guess to me, like, I also would have loved to have seen Andres interact with people like Montoya and some of the other townsfolk or something. Really, that's it. That's really all I have to complain about. They could have done a little more. But really, the biggest thing that this film has going against it is that it had to come out after The Mitchells versus the Machines and Spider-Verse. Two films that basically reinvented theatrical feature animation.
And gave Sony Pictures Animation like a huge shot in the arm after the Emoji Movie.
And even then, the Emoji Movie was made under bad circumstances, so... And that's not fair. I don't want people to say, like, well, it's not Spider-Verse or Mitchells. Because Vivo is a great movie. It doesn't need... Like, not every movie needs to reinvent the wheel. We've talked about this many, many times.
Be the best version of what you are.
And it's not like this is, like, a drastic change from what Sony Pictures has been doing. Like we've said, the CGI and the 2D animation mixture is great. It reminds me of a lot of, I don't know if you've seen Chico and Rita.
I might have seen like clips of it, but I know that name sounds familiar.
It was a really good movie from almost a decade. All these movies I like are almost a decade old now, and I don't like that. Because I just want to keep saying, oh, it's just a few years ago. A few years equaling 12 years ago. No. Anyway, in general, I loved Vivo. It's at my number 10 spot right now in terms of my favorite animated films. And I hope in some way, shape, or form, Sony, like when everything's back to normal, Sony can re-release this as like a Fathom event.
That would be fun.
I would love to see musicals like that at a Fathom event experience. And I think this one would play well because I know some people did see Vivo in a theater. It's just not everyone can go to a theater, which, you know, I'm fine with that, with the whole streaming versus theatrical experience debate going on. If you can watch a movie and you're comfortable going to a theater or watching it on streaming, just enjoy it, man. Just enjoy it however you want to. But yeah, I highly recommend people watch Vivo, and I know it's tracking well on Netflix right now.
Last I checked, at some point during the weekend, it was number 1.
People just need Netflix needs to stop with this word of mouth social media reliability of marketing and advertising movie, because it doesn't always work, because Netflix does the whole dump a bunch of things every month and see what sticks kind of thing. And that's not okay.
That, and it's very arbitrary which shows and that they really want to push towards their audience.
Because I think I want people to watch stuff like Centaur World and Vivo and like America the Motion Picture and stuff, because that's interesting. But Netflix is like, what's going to get us the most attention? They'll double down on that. And that's not okay. They need to stop making so much if they're just going to dump it all and then say like, oh, well, it didn't do well because nobody watched it because we didn't tell anybody about it.
Yeah, so if anything fails, it's more or less their own fault.
Like sometimes it is the fault of people not going to these movies, like in a theatrical sense, even without what else is going on right now. Making sure films and shows are successful is a two-way streak. Unless there's just something absolutely wrong with everything about the movie that they're not telling audiences, well, that's on them. But if you want to see something, you got to go see it. And you have to watch it legally if possible. That means you have to watch The Mitchells and Vivo and Centaur World on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just pirate it. And I'm sorry, and I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but you have to do that. Now, if your country doesn't have Netflix or HBO Max or something, and torrenting things is the only way you can watch them until an official release happens, so be it. That's fine. But in general, you have to make sure these shows and films are successful on whatever channel, whatever streaming service, whatever theater they are playing at.
Agreed.
But do you have any final thoughts about Vivo?
Vivo is my number 2 film of the year so far, trailing just a hair behind The Mitchells versus Machines. I said half jokingly like that Sony Pictures Animation has pretty much claimed like the top 2 spots of my list, pretty much the foreseeable future. I only say that half jokingly because I'm just really impressed with what they've been doing so far. And I am very much looking forward to their return to theaters, hopefully, with Hotel Transylvania Transformania.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to make a last second Netflix deal. I think it's a little too late.
At this point, yeah.
They have 2 months. I know it's amazing. We're in August already. So they would have to do something wildly drastic, and Netflix would need to plop down as much money as they want if they wanted this movie. Check out Vivo. Watch Vivo. We highly recommend it. It's one of our favorites.
And speaking of recommendations, I've got a couple. One is a movie, and the other 2 are shorts. And all of these can be found on Disney+. The movie, obviously, I have to recommend Moana, because this was the first time that Manuel-Miranda has been hired to write music for an animated film. And since it is kind of obvious that Miranda is taking a page from the book of the late, great Howard Ashman in terms of where his career is going, I think it's a good idea to check out everything that he's been involved with, including Encanto, which comes out later in the month. And as for the shorts, these were some of my favorite theatrical shorts. One of them was 2013's Get a Horse, which played right in front of Frozen. And it's one of the first for a female solo director, Lauren McMullen. And she grew up a big fan of like the classic Mickey Mouse cartoons from the 1930s. This short was a great tribute to that, plus mixing in great CGI animation. And it brought back Oswald the Lucky Rabbit for the first time in like 75 years. And the other short was, again, this one played in front of Moana, Inner Workings, it's kind of the similar sort of premise as Inside Out, but it's a bit more of a comedic interpretation of what's going on inside a person.
Yeah, no, it's about like how the brain, the heart, the lungs, and the organs interact with one another, and how the brain is just like, no, we can't do anything different or diverge from the path. We gotta just do everything. And it's basically a short that says like, do what your heart says.
Yep.
And what have you. I forgot about Get a Horse. I remember seeing that short for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is wild. I love it.
Oh, one correction. Get a Horse is not on Disney Plus for I don't know what reason, but you can find it on YouTube.
That's insane. Disney, you own so much, but you can't put it on the service? Okay. These corporations, man, they don't make sense to me sometimes.
No, they don't.
So my recommendation, since we had a very diverse like topics of like shorts, shows, and a film, I'm gonna recommend an anthology film, and it's by Katsuhiro Otomo, the man behind Akira, and it's called Short Piece. 4 shorts, including the Oscar-nominated Possessions, which I thought that was kind of interesting that one of the shorts got nominated, and that's probably the best one. If you've heard of Short Piece, Possessions is the short you've heard of from this collection. They all have very distinct experiences, and Possessions has some really distinct CGI animation. It looks great. I am not sure if like people who ended up making Studio Orange ended up started with this short, but I wouldn't be shocked if like some people worked on it, then went to make Studio Orange that made, Beastars, Land of the Illustrious, and did the CGI work for Godzilla Singular Point.
Huh.
And then Otomo himself directs one of the shorts, Combustible, which has this beautiful Japanese ink painting visual look. And then like Gambo by Hiroaki Ando. I've heard that director's name before. Anyway, has this cool, violent, visual, rough animation look. And then Hajime Katoki does the last short, A Farewell to Weapons, which is this dark comedy, sci-fi, horror action short, which I think is probably one of my favorite shorts of all time, just because of how different it is. And then, of course, we have animation legend Koji Morimoto directing the opening animation sequence. I think Sentai Filmworks still owns the rights to this movie, and I think
that they probably do.
I'm just saying this because I bought this movie like a decade ago. It comes with some cool postcards from the film, and I highly recommend this anthology film. Do I think it's better than Memories? No, but it's on par with like Robot Carnival, with that Otomo anthology film experience that I wish more films did. Like in general with animation, I want to see anthology films as a feature release. I know when some people think anthology film, they think of those Disney bundle films from back in the day, but these are better than those because they would actually have high quality animation and aren't made during an animation strike like those bundle films were.
Yeah.
That's a whole can of worms for another day. But that's my recommendation for Short Piece.
It's not available for streaming, but that's definitely one of those physical media items that I have to have in my collection.
I definitely recommend it. Like, anthology films are a great way for new talent to sprout up. And, well, like I said last episode, that's what Studio Panak did with Modest Heroes. All these studios should be doing this. And that's why I'm so happy for Short Circuit and Pixar Spark Shorts. It's just good stuff.
Oh, yeah. Now, unfortunately, because life happens, we didn't get time to do another Ghibli journey, but we'll come back to that after the anime preview.
That'll be our next 2 episodes. We're doing the split shift style again because that's just what works for us. So that's what's going to be. We're going to cover our impressions on the summer 2021 anime season so far.
It'll be an interesting one.
I can't wait because, boy, is this season an amalgamation of a ton of stuff.
But more on that next time. For now, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at CamsEyeView. I run my own website called camsiview.biz where I review animated films and shows called The Other Side of Animation. And I have a Patreon at patreon.com/camsiview. If you like my work, you can support me that way. That's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Captain Kaye42. Check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/Coach K42. You can find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. Look for us on Podchaser. You can check out all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. Thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you guys later. Peace out.
Bye.